Right. Here, again, they had these clouds started building up, and their orders were to go by the book and not drop the bomb unless you have visual. But the plane also had one of the world's first devices for actually getting imagery on radar. And there was one commander of the Navy who was aboard, and as they're approaching Nagasaki, Sweeney said, we can only make one pass, or we're going to ditch in enemy territory. And he said, well, how close can you get the bomb? And he said, I'll take responsibility for that. And he said, let's face it, a miss is as good as a mile, and that they went by radar imaging to drop the bomb.
They're approaching Nagasaki. It's a little before 11 a.m. Nagasaki time, Kokura time, Nagasaki time. Remember, they divert to the secondary. This, from the airplane, from the sky, this isn't a profound change in direction, but from the ground, it's going to matter a lot to people's lives. They're picked up by radar. You emphasize that there is a radar operator, Ichiro Miyato, who's talking to his commander. He reports, looks like a lone B-SAN running radar. My guess is that it is mapping, altitude about 10,000 meters. That's boxcar. But
right.
They don't know enough to recognize. The radar man doesn't get suspicious.
No, all he sees is one plane, and then on one sweep, he thinks he sees two planes that are close together.
And that's important because his officer thinks if there are two or three, we're in trouble.
Yes.
Actually,
so they're
much in trouble.
Right, 20 miles away in Nagasaki, in Orakami, at the command post, very close to the hypocenter. The officer on the other side knows that this is looking like another Hiroshima.
Sweeney knows that when he gives the order to drop this, he's going to mass murder tens of thousands of people. There was some question about what would happen after the first attack, but they know now what's happened at Hiroshima. He knows that when he drops this bomb, he lives with it the rest of his life. The whole crew knows.
Right. And there was a mathematics that went with this. If you went in with 150 or 300 planes on a firebombing run, you could say, okay, my bombs fell on the gas tanks we were aiming at. But when it came to the atomic bomb, it was much more personal. And the opposite of what one of the Manhattan Project scientists thought. Harold Urey thought that the atomic bomb would make war more impersonal, and it was the opposite, because Sweeney and the others knew everything you saw on the ground, every one of those deaths came back to one plane.
Does Sweeney use the Tibbets maneuver, the dive, to
yes.
escape? So you can hear a B-29 diving to the ground.
Right.
That's the signal that if you know what to listen for, and one of your double survivors does, that's the signal that the bomb is coming.
Right. That's when you know you're in trouble and it's going to be another one of these Picadon.
11:02 a.m. The radar operator, 25 kilometers from Nagasaki, is on the telephone with his commander. And he says the object should be over Nagasaki now. The commander's at Uramata, which is near the hypocenter. And then the phone is fried, right?
Right. And the fellow on the other end, he had him on speakerphone, and he thought that the commander was being very rude or panicky or something, saying, stay with me. He realized later that what the man was asking for was just another voice on the other end to stay with him, because he knew he was about to die.
And a couple points of view as the flash. The first thing that happens is the blue flash, and everyone's told not to look at it. Many people do. They're going to be seared or blistered or blasted or carbonated. But the flash comes first. From one point of view, we go to a prison camp 63 kilometers north of Urakama, which is the suburb of Nagasaki where the hypocenter is. They target a stadium below them, and there's a rolling ridge, and there's a river in the middle of it. So think of this as a great big stadium around a stadium, and that matters because of these rolling ridges. They shadow many of our survivors. All right. There is a prison camp 63 kilometers away, and Charlie goes to the detail that a man has survived since the Philippines. He's been there since the Death March, and he's named Clarence Graham. He's just emerging from living underground where they've been starving him to death. What does he see? What does he experience?
They've been working one of the coal mines, and He comes up to the surface. They had been told they were not going to be fed anymore. The commander of that camp, he did make a connection to Hiroshima and said, you will work basically until you die, or until the Empress says you don't have to work anymore, which meant until you die. And then the flash occurs. They're almost 40 miles away, and they could feel the heat of it against their faces. The trees, the sides facing the flash, the leaves were actually flash desiccated. And the blast, when it arrived, was very hot air and strong enough to knock some of the weaker men, knock them down.
Let's go to our survivors. The book is To Hell and Back, The Last Train from Hiroshima. The Nagasaki, the Hiroshima bomb, the plutonium bomb, is going off at twice the power of the first bomb in Hiroshima.